Did feel a bit out of character, David utilizing so much cloak and dagger tech. And I've definitely been struggling with the idea of him doing home improvement. But one step in here and it all makes sense. Sorry, my leg itches. The panic room. Scary. Panic room is a place for rich people to hide in when people start bouncing bricks off their windows. They're typically not even on the blueprints. I had to fix my booby sailing. So when Noble built this penthouse for one of their executives, someone slipped this into the mix, and it's remained in Noble's blind spot ever since. All David had to do was repurpose it. Make sure you're capturing all this. I don't want to miss one chance because of I don't want to miss my one chance because of a discovery technicality. I understand, but you needn't specify. My memory is flawless. I can play back visuals, sounds, sensations. I can even give detailed reports on air particulates. You mean you can smell? Better than any human. And some canines. So does it smell stale in here to you? Stale? It doesn't to me. Almost like someone's been in here recently. Almost like someone visits here frequently. Alright, let's try booting up the computer. You don't think the console is password protected? 2 physical doors, a 64-digit code, and a half-ton Android, and a secret phrase. If David set a password on his PC after all of that, I'm going back to the morgue to have a word with him. Good, it's already signed in. You're looking for camera footage? I'd also settle for a note plainly stating that he feared for his life. What am I doing? Here, you search for video files. They'll probably be timestamped and formatted for short-range devices. I have the subfolder. The camera stream live data constantly. The files are clipped at fairly irregular intervals. Once every week, it seems. The most recent video file here has footage going back 8 days. It was accessed yesterday at around 4 p.m. You were asleep then, so the only person who could have gotten here at that time is David himself. Alright, let's see it then. Of course, it's just that I'm having difficulty. Try double clicking. I've been trying to open the files from the moment I discovered them, hadn't I? But they are encrypted. Damn it, David, you leave me enough clues to get this far, but you won't let me use your computer. It's the brand on the encryption program. If I rush to Sabina, they might have a backdoor I could bluff them into. Those files were not encrypted with any commercially available tool. This appears to be Father's own work. Shit. If David Asher handwrote the encryption on these files, there's no one alive who could. Hey, was Snosh just flattering you back there? Or is your processing power really that special? I don't know. Can you break his encryption, yes or no? With enough time? And how much time would that be? I would estimate it at 2 to 6 hours. That's a 4-hour window. No matter how sophisticated, encryption is still just a code that must be deciphered. And when deciphering any code, progress proceeds exponentially, which makes it particularly difficult to determine the amount of time required to complete the process. 2 to 6 hours. I don't have any better options. Get started. I started 4 minutes and 23 seconds ago. Finally showing some initiative. But you've been talking to me this whole time. I have the ability to analyze data in parallel by utilizing subconscious processes so long as the work required is rote. So you're doing it in the back of your head? Actually, I'm speaking to you in the back of my head. I could give the decryption process my full undivided attention, but I would become non-responsive. Hey, that's a pretty nifty feature. I'll have to keep that in mind. Alright, can you take this show on the road? Or do we have to rip this computer out of the wall and find a battery? I have copied the encryption files and we'll work on them as we travel. We can leave whenever you're ready. Still can't believe David let me get this far just to shut the door in my face at the last second. But he did let me get this far. And the computer's not the only thing in here. The cabinets are a lot less eye-catching than his computer, but knowing David, that's all the more reason to chat. Lots of paperwork, bonds and holdings, a platinum bar. His birth certificate might be nearly as valuable. Can't imagine what people would pay to steal David Asher's identity. And down here at the bottom, a binder. Noble's logo on the front and in the middle. Enough pages to dwarf one of those phone books you see in period pieces. They're masking it in legalese even on the table of contents, but basically, this is his employment contract. Hold on to this for me. Must be very important if you're giving it to me. It's certainly very heavy. Was there anything else in there? Expecting an updated copy of his will to show up? It is a possibility, isn't it? Maybe in a corny old murder mystery. Widely beloved and respected genre with over 2 centuries of... There is something else. Your papers. That Evangeline Morgan be given immediate and complete ownership of the android designated Sarah. It's dated to a few weeks back. Had he already made up his mind about all of this? If he had, why'd he hide this where no one else could find it? Was I just a backup plan? Well, at least we've got something a bit more concrete than Starling's word now. Her word should be plenty, shouldn't it? Not if people realize how precious you are. As a collector's item, we've yet to meet one person who knows what the hell you are. But Noble could have easily argued that you fall under private technology or physical holdings. Unless I had something like this. It's good that you do then. I'm glad that Father wanted me to go with a friend of his. Yeah. This will get me a huge tax write-off when I donate you to a for-profit college. You could at least pick a charitable institution. It's just an old saying. Old colleges have been for-profit since the 60s. That doesn't make me feel any better. You can cheer up in the car. Hey, let's ride to the courthouse. Priority. There was an upcharge at this hour for priority transportation. That's irritating. But I'd like to have more than just a few minutes to prepare once we get there. The upcharge is a multiplier of 5.7. I'll prepare on the way over. Very good, Adonai. "5:48 p.m., July 1st, 2086. Does it excite you, going into courtrooms? What do you mean? You don't feel the tension in the air as the audience murmurs amongst themselves? You don't feel a fiery sense of justice rising in your gut as the prosecution smirks at your ragtag assembly of witnesses. Do you really think this is going to be like some kind of movie where the good guys save the day? Probably not. Though that would be nice if it were. What's your deal anyway? Did David train you off of a movie marathon from hell or something? We did watch films together, if that's what you're asking, though he was rarely the one who suggested it. So you were the aggressor. What's an android get out of watching a flick anyway? What do I get? Why do you do it? What's your reason? Not sure how to answer your question. Never mind. Forgot what I was talking to. I like the performances. Sure, there you go. Got a crush on Humphrey Bogart or something? He's a handsome man. But it's not the actors I like so much as their performance. The truth is, besides father, I have very little experience when it comes to people. I hadn't noticed. I read the net and I watch people and what they share of their lives. But it's all so subtle, so hard to follow. There are so many unspoken rules that can't be taught, only learned, and I often struggle to grasp them. You're all so complex, so detailed. The characters on screen are exaggerated, larger than life. The actors enunciate, their body language is precise and meaningful. Their faces are bright and softly lit, and their eyes are... It's fiction, so these characters and their stories, they have a beginning, a middle, and end. And the people on screen don't ask anything of you except your attention. You can't disappoint them or make them feel awkward. You can just watch and learn. What about you, Adonai? What about me? Do you like movies? Yeah, sure, back when I was a kid. Really? Who was your favorite director? What was your favorite film? It was a long time ago. I don't remember. "6:05 p.m., July 1st, 2086. State Building. Floor 48. Things are quieter than I expected here at the courthouse. Though I've always felt courthouse is a bit of a misnomer. Government building is probably the best way to describe these towers, all-encompassing and impenetrably vague. 100 floors of officials and documents and paper-pushing queues, with a couple dozen courtrooms squeezed in along the way. Didn't think I'd be arguing in court when I woke up today. Didn't think that my friend would be dead or that he'd have to thrust an android onto my lap either. I could just walk in there and concede. Emma would be irritated and more than a little confused, but I could play it off as an exercise in grief. The android would complain loudly, of course, but I wouldn't have to listen to it. Now that it's registered in my name, I could probably just order the damn thing to reset its memory. But I haven't done that. And I guess I don't plan to. Why? Must be because I have my suspicions as well. Sarah insists that David would never commit suicide, and I haven't actually stopped to ask myself whether or not I agree. David was rational, subdued, private, hard on himself, and not prone to emotional outburst. So maybe that's why I'm finding myself outside a courtroom, prepared to humor and add suspicions before the state. Because I don't really believe David killed himself either. What's your progress bar at? I can confirm that I am making progress. Well, shit, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Would it be difficult to summarize that progress in terms of completion percent? Give it your best shot anyway. 4%. Are you feeling confident in your case? Markedly less so after hearing that. Do you think the judge will be amenable to your argument? What are you talking about? Do you know the judge we've been assigned? Are they particularly lenient or strict? Adjuncts are always a coin flip, so you do know what an adjunct is, don't you? Are you expecting to see a bearded old man with a robe and a gavel when we get in there? Should I not? Adjuncts are android judges, okay? With all the authority that entails. I am surprised to hear that people are willing to accept rulings made by automated dependents. Rulings come from landmark cases in the higher courts. Those are passed down by actual judges, real people with decades of study and experience. But not every eviction case or traffic ticket that ends up in court requires years of legal expertise. Sometimes all you need is a referee and a sentencing algorithm. So, androids are used to reduce caseload? Been that way for decades. But how was a law that replaced judges ever enforced? Wouldn't there be injunctions stalling? Judges did fight it for years, at every level and in every theater. But the public lost their patience for that kind of obstruction during the 60s. The state needed to shred budgets across the boards. And so judges that couldn't be replaced by years of legal battles were instead ushered into early retirement by the unrelenting force of our great nation's accountants. And it's not controversial having machines determine sentencing for human beings. Whatever controversy there is, it gets aimed at the machines, not the people who put them there. And the machines can't lose sleep over it. Besides, it used to be that even the most high profile of crimes wouldn't get a court date until weeks or months later. Nowadays, most crimes are prosecuted within a single business week. And that's not rushing things. Keeps people in my line of work on their toes, that's for sure. I'm just surprised to hear that there's so much haste. Don't they teach you about classical conditioning in android school? You gotta feed the dog immediately after you ring the bell. If punishment doesn't follow the crime in quick succession, the lesson doesn't stick. You see. But if adjuncts are so effective, why aren't they used in every trial? Why aren't they used in politics? That's a logical question to ask. And the answer is... that logic only gets you so far when it comes to people. Doesn't everyone want the courts to be just as possible? If adjuncts are truly impartial and incorruptible. Everyone wants justice, sure. But there are other considerations to be had. Such as... disgust. What? That's all people really care about, what all their morals boil down to. Just what they do or don't find disgusting. Only problem is, everything's more palatable when viewed through a screen. So when everyone sees the world through AR and cameras and no one ever gets dirt under their fingernails, you'd be surprised what you can get away with. I don't understand. Yeah, well, therein lies the problem. 6:24 p.m., July 1st, 2086. Courtroom 48D. God damn, my nose itches. Emma. Just a preliminary hearing, huh? Wouldn't know it from the look on her face. But I shouldn't have expected any leeway once we stepped into the courtroom. Not with her. That's the adjunct up there? Is it asleep? It's loading. It needs to load? Don't be rude. Not every ad can afford to be decked out as extravagantly as you. Especially not in the state, not those the state buys in bulk. There's an audience. You mean the gallery? That's nothing. Could have been a lot worse. Word of any trial in the case of David Asher's death must have spread like wildfire, even a mock trial like this one. Detectives like Ray's in London would get chewed out for leaking things to the press. But uninformed officers had little to lose and a lot to gain by dropping a text to their attentive friends in the media. And then there's the corporate plants. Interns usually, preferably ones with modded eyes. It's illegal to film inside a courtroom, but this is the year 2086. Things are going to get out one way or another. I don't like having my face on camera. I don't like attention in general. But I'm not such a coward that I'd skip David's funeral just because there'd be paparazzi outside of it. My pretty little likeness was going to end up in the background of some tabloid photograph one way or another by the end of the circus. At least this way, it's decent marketing for my legal services. What will happen once the adjunct finishes loading? How will the trial proceed? With all those films you watch, I figured that you could extrapolate. I'm asking so as to correct any misconceptions. Well, not everything you saw on the silver screen is outdated. Court will come to order and there will be a clarification of the charges. The defense enters a plea, and if it's not guilty, the prosecution begins making their case. That means calling witnesses to the stand, correct? Mostly. Sometimes they'll testify virtually from a separate location. Depends on the security concerns surrounding the particular individual in the case. What do you do then? Sit here and watch? Not if I want to get paid. I cross-examine witnesses after the prosecution are done questioning them. I can present evidence or witnesses of my own in response as long as I have discovery backing me. You said that before. Discovery means just that I can't pull stuff out of my pockets and present it without any kind of context. I have to have proof that I acquired it legally during the course of my investigation. Most of the time that means having recordings or witnesses that can verify my investigation, which I can provide. You didn't think I was letting you tag along because I liked you, did you? And the jury? I don't see where they would sit. The jury hasn't sat in the actual courtroom for years now. They have their own chambers where they watch a feed of the trial's proceedings in anonymity. And that's not an issue? Don't people want to look someone in the eye before passing judgment on them? You've got an old-fashioned sense of justice, don't you? There's no jury at a preliminary hearing, anyway. It's only meant to evaluate whether or not the prosecution has enough evidence to go to trial. A mere formality in today's day and age. With tools like optics and arcs, there's never any shortage of evidence to work with. So all you have to do today is convince the adjunct. Easier said than done. Adjuncts lean heavily toward evidence over arguments. And right now, all the evidence suggests that David killed himself. If it's going to be an uphill battle, I can't afford to stumble. I need to focus on establishing an alternate interpretation of the facts that needs to be solid. But I don't have a suspect, or even a motive for killing David. Yet. Anyway, I'll need to be sharp. Emma doesn't play nice enough for me to be anything less. I think it's waking up. This third lower court is now in session. Adjunct AD 84 presiding. I call to order the people versus Asher. Do the people wish to make an opening statement? No, Your Honor. No point in bothering when it's just the adjunct here. Very well. Do the defense wish to make an opening statement? Not at this time, Your Honor. Might as well ring the bell and get this shit so started. If neither the people nor the defense wish to make an opening statement, then it falls to me to set the stage. My model name is Adjunct. My unit designation code is AD84. I am a machine, an automated dependent, and I serve the state by presiding over trials. You might find yourself wondering, why? What gives a machine the right to judge a human? A fair question, but the answer is simple. In every culture, in every society, no matter how it is worshipped, enshrined, or defied, justice has one defining quality. Justice is beautiful. Like a balanced equation, like the golden ratio, like the Vitruvian man, justice is beautiful. So, what gives me the right? This gorgeous bod. Whatever. Forget it. Forget I said anything. I was trying to lighten the mood, but I can see everyone hates me. Do the trial without me. They're guilty. Or whatever. Your Honor. Wait. What the flip? This defendant's already dead. Why are we doing this? Is this a debug thing? Because I'll log the error if I need to. No, Your Honor. This is a preliminary hearing to determine whether David Asher did, in fact, commit suicide as he... I get it. You want to make sure he wasn't cuckoo in the cranium before you cut up his will like a T-bone. I didn't realize that adjuncts were so lively. They aren't. They're supposed to be austere and statuesque. Looks like we got served the most in need of repairs adjunct the court system could find. Whatever paper pusher we rushed to get this trial going must have wanted a little payback for the kindness. What's that look for? Could it be your trying to size me up? Wouldn't dream of it, Your Honor. Good, because if you have any doubts about my ability to run this trial, I could always just enact summary judgment here and now. God, my nose. I'm sure you'll find my ruling to be fair and even-handed. That won't be necessary, Your Honor. She's much more of a character than I'm used to seeing up there, even counting all the flesh and blood judges I've met. She's still just an adjunct. She'll follow the evidence where it leads. So as long as I can make a few adjustments for the occasional outburst from the bench, my plan's still workable. So, people, shall we get started with that first witness? Right away, Your Honor. The people call Dr. Yumi Sato to the stand. It's Yumi. Hey. So how about it, pretty lady? You swear to tell the whole truth, the whole and unadulterated truth to the best of your ability? I do. Good enough for me. Dr. Sato, you were in charge of the autopsy for David Asher, were you not? I was. And when did you make your examination? I started last night. Well, technically 1 a.m. would be very early this morning. I think you can still say last night if you're talking about 1 in the morning. Objection. The defense will have their opportunity to cross-examine. Until then, they should refrain from making error in the marks. The hell? All I said was, yeah, what she said. You mean sustained? Don't get cute with me, counselor. Being cute is my job. God damn. Barely gotten started. That seemed pretty bad, I don't know. We should try to avoid being penalized in the future. Thanks for the tip. Shake it off. I'll get my chance to raise objections of my own soon enough. Dr. Sato, were you able to determine the cause of death? He passed away due to respiratory failure. Could you explain what that means to the court? Essentially, he wasn't getting enough oxygen into his blood. Seems by the time he arrived at the hospital, he was no longer breathing. What does respiratory failure look like? What are the symptoms? There would be lightheadedness, dizziness, fainting, pale skin, and a bluish tinge around certain extremities. And the condition he was in matched those symptoms? Correct. In your experience, what are the most common causes of respiratory failure? It can be caused by injury or disease, but the subject had no wounds or reported illnesses and otherwise appeared to be perfectly healthy. What else could cause respiratory failure then? It's also commonly seen in fatal drug overdoses. Did you perform a tox screen on Dr. Asher? Yes, but his tox screen came back clean. Whatever killed him, it wasn't something we've encountered before. Wait, a clean tox screen? Clean? Can't let this chance slip by. Need to catch her mistake the second it comes out of her mouth. You're joking, right? Just trying to keep things light. But that's supposed to be my job. So quit scabbing. Overruled. I need to choose my objections more carefully if I want to get anywhere. Okay, we're not doing this right. Fart! Hey, fungus. How are you? It's impossible for David Asher's talk screen to be clean, and we all know it. Since he was on camera drinking camera the night he died. Ah, that makes sense. And that scared you? Oh, we did get the achievement. Cool. Cool. Awesome possum. The witness merely misspoke, Your Honor. As it plainly states on the Tox report itself, Dr. Asher did have alcohol in his blood, but not as much as a concentration as to be lethal. Yeah, my bad. When I said the tox screen was clean, I just meant it didn't tell the attending physicians anything they didn't already know. Overall, a little more nitpicky than I like to be, but at least I was able to balance the momentum more or less. Shall we continue, Dr. Sato? If the tox screens were negative for pharmaceuticals and drugs, what caused David Asher's respiratory failure? During my autopsy, I analyzed his blood and was able to isolate a foreign compound. So there was a lethal dose of a drug inside his body. It just happened to be a drug the hospital had never encountered before. That's correct. I think we're all going to get tired pretty fast if we don't at least pick a placeholder name for this substance, Your Honor. People don't object, Your Honor. In that case, I'll put all my creative heuristics to work coming up with an original scientific fitting name for this substance. A name like Omega. Omega 3. That name is already taken. Fine, call it Delta or whatever. Delta, used in science to denote an unknown variable. Not bad. Delta has other meanings when it comes to drug, but yeah, our Delta matches no known public pharmacology or toxology records. That being said, chemically it does have all the hallmarks of a general depressant. I know the feeling. So it stands to reason it would exhibit a similar effect on the body when ingested. You say ingested. Why? I eliminated all other possibilities during my examination of the body. He must have swallowed it. And judging from his stomach contents, it must have been a liquid. Thank you, Dr. Sato. Shall I summarize things for the court? Yes, please. I wasn't listening that closely. Victim died of respiratory failure. And his tox screen showed that his blood was clear of anything that could cause respiratory failure. Except for this unknown substance, the poison we've labeled Delta. That sounds like a textbook suicide. Should we wrap it up here? Not quite yet, Your Honor. This may clearly be a poisoning, but there's at least one detail about this case that doesn't feel like a suicide at all. People shouldn't get ahead of themselves. There's nothing textbook about a supposed suicide that had a witness sitting there watching it happen. As you say. Well, now I'm lost. Was this poisoning a suicide or not? If that's the case, then perhaps we should give the defense the opportunity to cross-examine. Do I already have that achievement? I think I already have that achievement then. How kind of you to offer. Ball's in my court now. He died of respiratory failure. Thus, David committed suicide. During Blockjock, every piece of information you learn deals you a card. Choose only the questions that are logical and relevant, and only press if you think a line of questioning is worth continuing, or else you'll go bust and lose credit. Select the press option to see what the follow-up question would be. You can only win backtrack when you reach exactly 21. With my cross-examination, I need to put a microscope over the weakest parts of that argument, and hope that some cracks will appear under pressure. Dr. Sato, you said that the subject had to have ingested the Delta orally. But how can we actually be sure about that? Pretty sure? I mean, I can go into detail about all the cavities I checked, but... But how can we be sure that the subject ingested the Delta knowingly? Well, we can't be sure of that. Certainly not just from an autopsy. You said it must have been a liquid, yes? Would it have been a large amount? Depends on the concentration of the delivery solution. It could have just been a drop. The kind of thing that could easily go unnoticed, yes? Calls for speculation, Your Honor? Withdrawn. Aw, man, I wanted to jump on her case. Dr. Sato, you were only able to even identify the presence of this delta after hours of work. Can you really be sure that this never-before-seen chemical can cause respiratory failure? Well, I have had time to run simulations, and they do give every indication that it would act as a depressant. And just enough of any depressant and respiratory failure would occur. You've ran simulations, so you haven't tested delta on an actual person. No, I haven't. That would be very difficult to do given our extremely limited sample. Not to mention highly unethical. Of course. But without such a test, you don't actually know for sure that delta can cause any of the symptoms you've described. Was there a question in that statement, Counselor? You don't actually know for sure, do you? No, not yet anyway. Seems like that's blackjack. Got an achievement, got 21 in blackjack. Thank you for your time, Dr. Sato. We all appreciate it. But it does seem like we're still in the dark about many details regarding Dr. Asher's death, wouldn't you say? Well, poisoning via the compound we're calling Delta is still the most likely explanation. So there are other explanations for what happened? Defense is calling for speculation, Your Honor. It's not speculation when a medical examiner is attempting to explain the cause of death, Your Honor. The witness will answer the question. Well, respiratory failure can be caused by illnesses. If he had undiagnosed pneumonia or some other disease and his respiratory system was weakened. Undiagnosed pneumonia with his level of care? It is technically possible. I'll take it. I have no more questions for this witness. That felt weak, but I can't be picky when I'm stalling for time. Seeding doubt wherever I can, however accounted, is just about all I can manage. Detective Reyes, you were one of the leads in investigating this crime scene. Yes, ma'am. And did you interview the EMTs who first arrived on the scene? So sorry, folks. My nose is so itchy. And how did you interview the EMTs who first arrived on the scene? I did. They responded to an emergency signal from the home security console located in the kitchen. What did they find when they arrived on the scene? The victim was unconscious on the floor of his parlor. He was receiving CPR from a witness, the individual who had called them. They were both airlifted to Gatesfield Memorial Hospital, and Dr. Asher was declared dead shortly after arriving there. She's actually handling herself pretty well up there on the sand. I half expected her to roll her eyes during the swearing in. But when you take into consideration her love for boot heel authority, she might be right at home here in the courtroom, very seat of the state's power over the people. The witness met with the deceased about a half hour before he fell ill from 7:30 to 8 p.m. The two of them talked for some time and shared a drink. Shortly after, Dr. Asher became distracted, lightheaded, and eventually non-responsive. And during that same time period, drinking the same liquor, this witness exhibited no symptoms themselves? None. Though, through a collaborative effort with Noble Electronics Security Division, we searched the entire building. But we found nothing unusual in any of the food or drink on the premises. Including the bottle that the witness and the deceased drank from. So what was your ultimate conclusion after investigating the scene? The whiskey bottle was clean and the witness's drink was clean. Only person who got sick was Dr. Asher, drinking from a cup that he had prepared. So it was our determination that David Asher committed suicide by poisoning himself. She's pretty tight-lipped up there, but I think she slipped up at least once. The police want to claim that they've eliminated every other possibility and covered every angle. But I know there are a number of blind spots that they're not willing to admit to. Asher met with the witness at 7:30 p.m. last night, and by 8 p.m. he was dead. He's the one who prepared their drinks. And there was no opportunity for the witness to ever slip into something. He drank from a cup that he himself poisoned. Can't make that claim. Not when the evidence record clearly shows that tests of Dr. Asher's cup were inconclusive. The police can't claim he drank from a poisoned cup without first proving that his cup was in fact poisoned. You're talking a lot of sense, lady. Does it resolve, or do you have a response, D.A. Rockford? Testing on the deceased cup has been inconclusive so far, Your Honor. I don't dispute that. Though I'd be surprised if the defense has any idea how else the poison could have possibly been delivered to Dr. Asher's alone. Not at this time, but that's the funny thing about the burden of proof. It's not on the defense. As we're all aware. Right, we all knew that. I definitely knew that. Now, if the people are done bemoaning that pesky innocence until proven guilty issue, perhaps I could begin my cross-examination. Fire away, baby. Fire away, baby. Ray's testimony is meant to show that David's the only one who could have poisoned himself. She'll be on guard and hard set against helping me, but if I keep her focused on eliminating other possibilities, I could get her to make my point for me before she even realized what's happened. The only people you saw on the cameras that night were Dr. Asher and his witness, correct? Yeah, there was no footage in the house of anyone else. Are there any parts of the house that aren't recorded by camera? God, my nose. Sure. There are a number of rooms in the home's interior that don't have cameras in them. So it's possible that there were other people there that night because cameras weren't watching every room. No, that's not possible. The only way up to the penthouse is through the building's elevator or the fire escape stairs, both of which are on camera. And that still wouldn't get you past his front door, which is also on camera. No one besides the two of them were there that day. Detective, we've been doing a lot of assuming and reasoning in quick succession, so I'll ask this plainly for the court. Is there any photographic evidence showing David Asher adding anything to his drink that night? No. Seems he had already poured for the both of them by the time we returned to the parlor. He had already poured? In that case, the next question need to be when and what. Detective Reyes, during your course of the investigation, did you find any samples of Delta in the kitchen or parlor? No. That was a fast answer. Well, it was a pretty easy question. If we had found poison at the scene of the crime, that'd be a pretty important, don't you think? What about in his lab, his bedroom, his basement? No, and no. We didn't find Delta or any other unusual substance in any part of his penthouse. Right, they never found any poison. No poison at all? At any point in the investigation, was poison found on the body of the deceased? No. He must have been searched. Did he have any capsules or vials, eyedroppers? Didn't even have his wallet on him. Why? Thank you for enlightening the court about this point, Detective. What point? Well, I think it's strange, don't you, Detective? I mean, how could he have possibly poisoned himself without first procuring some poison? Ba-bam.